My name is Wanda. I am 31 years old, and on a quiet Saturday evening in October, I found myself standing in the driveway of my mother's house, holding a small gift bag with a leather wallet inside. The house was alive with noise. Cars lined both sides of the street, laughter spilled out through open windows, and the deep rhythm of music pulsed faintly through the walls. Somewhere behind the garage, the smell of barbecue drifted into the cool air. That same garage where I used to sleep. I should have gone inside immediately. After all, I had driven 40 minutes to be there. I had carefully chosen a gift for a man who had never once asked me how my day was. I had ironed my blouse, worn the earrings my grandmother gave me, and prepared myself the way people do when they are about to enter a room full of family. Except this wasn't really a family, not for me. This was a room full of people who had spent 22 years pretending I didn't exist. What happened inside that house over the next 4 hours would tear apart more than 2 decades of carefully constructed lies. But at that moment, standing in the driveway, I didn't know any of that yet. I only knew that something felt heavy in my chest, something I had carried for years without fully understanding. And I had no idea that before the night ended, everything I believed about my life would change forever. Before I take you inside, let me take you back to 2004. That was the year my mother married Frank Holt. It was also the last year I saw my father. I was 9 years old when everything changed. We lived in a small rental house off Route 9 in Millfield, Ohio. It was the kind of town where nothing much happened, just a gas station, a dollar store, a church, and long stretches of quiet roads. My father, Ray Tillman, was a carpenter. He built things with his hands, decks, porches, shelves, and he always smelled like sawdust and coffee. Every afternoon at exactly 3:15, his blue pickup truck would roll into the school parking lot, and he'd wave at me from the driver's seat like it was the best part of his day. He called me Pumpkin. Then one Tuesday in March, I came home from school and everything was different. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table with 2 suitcases beside her. She didn't look emotional. She didn't look angry. She just looked final. "Your father is gone," she said. "He doesn't want us anymore." I remember asking where he went. She said, "Away." I asked if he was coming back. She said no, and I believed her. I was 9 years old. Why wouldn't I? 3 months later, a man named Frank Holt came over for dinner. He had a firm handshake, an easy smile, and 2 daughters from his first marriage, Brenda, who was 14, and Cassie, who was 7. By August, my mother and Frank were married. By September, we were living in his house. It was a ranch-style home with 3 bedrooms, a finished basement, and a 2-car garage. Brenda and Cassie had 1 room. My mother and Frank had another. I stood in the hallway that first day, holding my small suitcase, and asked the simplest question a child can ask. "Where's my room?" My mother didn't hesitate. She walked me through the kitchen, opened the door to the garage, and pointed to a thin mattress lying on the concrete floor. "It's temporary," she said, "until we figure things out." They never figured things out. That garage became my bedroom for 9 years. It had no drywall, just exposed wooden beams and insulation covered with plastic. A single bare bulb hung from the ceiling. At night, the water heater groaned beside me, and the pipes above made hollow sounds every time someone flushed a toilet upstairs. My mattress was thin and smelled like mildew within a few months. The pillow came from a closet and carried the scent of mothballs. Meanwhile, inside the house, Brenda had lavender walls and a canopy bed. Cassie had a cozy daybed and a little reading lamp shaped like a ladybug. Every morning, I walked past their rooms on my way to the kitchen. Every morning, I was reminded where I didn't belong. Once, a neighbor came by and saw the mattress through the open garage door. She asked if it was for camping. My mother smiled and said I liked having my own space. She even joked that some kids would love that kind of independence. I was 9 years old. I didn't love it. I didn't choose it. I endured it. And that was just the beginning. As the years passed, the house filled with memories, just none of them included me. Every holiday, my mother gathered everyone in front of the fireplace for photos, Frank in the center, Brenda and Cassie beside him. My mother behind them, smiling proudly. I would step forward instinctively, wanting to be part of it. "There's not enough room," Brenda would say, and my mother would add, without even looking at me, "Wanda, honey, can you take the picture?" So I did. Year after year, I stood behind the camera. Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, 4th of July, I captured every moment. The flash would light up their smiling faces, and afterward those photos would go up on the mantle. A perfect family, a complete family. A family that didn't include me. Over 12 years, dozens of photos rotated through that mantle. Not once was I in any of them. Eventually, I stopped noticing, or at least I pretended to. Because sometimes the only way to survive something constant is to act like it's invisible, but it never really disappears. It just waits, and one day it comes back all at once. By the time I reached high school, I had learned my place. I didn't complain, I didn't argue. I stayed quiet, did my work, and stayed out of the way. When I asked about college savings, my mother told me there wasn't any for me. Brenda and Cassie had funds set up years earlier. Mine. Nothing. She told me my father had left nothing behind. That was a lie, but I didn't know that yet, so I worked harder. I earned a full scholarship. I left for college with almost nothing, and I didn't look back. At least that's what I told myself. But the truth is, I kept going back. Not for my mother, not for Frank, not even for Brenda or Cassie. I went back for my grandmother. She was the only one who ever made me feel like I mattered. Every Sunday, she would call and ask about my life, my classes, my friends, my future. She never mentioned the garage. She never asked why I wasn't in the photos. But once I asked her about my father, and her answer stayed with me for years. Some things are better left buried, she said softly. I didn't understand then, but I would, years later. On a night that started just like this one, with a party, a gift, and a house full of people who thought they knew the truth. They didn't, and neither did I, but that was about to change. By the time I turned 30, I had built a life that was simple, structured, and most importantly, mine. I passed my CPA exam on the first try. I worked as a staff accountant at a small firm where reliability mattered more than charm. My boss once told me I was the most dependable person in the building, and I held on to that. Dependable meant stable, predictable, safe. My apartment was small but orderly. 1 bedroom, 2nd floor, quiet street. A second-hand couch, 2 plants I refused to let die, and a bookshelf arranged by color because it gave me a sense of control. I paid my rent on time. I followed rules. I kept things neat. Because when your childhood is chaos disguised as normal, you grow up craving control in the smallest details. I still went home for holidays, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know how to completely stop. And every time nothing had changed. I washed dishes while everyone else sat and talked. I carried chairs, wrapped gifts, stayed useful but invisible. When it came time to eat, I'd offer to sit at the counter because there weren't enough chairs. No one argued, no one ever said, "No, Wanda, sit with us." They just let me fade into the background, again and again and again. So when my mother called that Wednesday, the call that led to this night, it already felt different. She never called. "Your stepfather is turning 60, she said. "We're having a party Saturday, be here by 5. No greeting, no warmth, just instructions. Then, almost as an afterthought, bring something nice," and she hung up. I sat there for a long time after that call ended, thinking, weighing, wondering if this time I just wouldn't go. And for the first time in my life, there were no consequences to consider. No one would call, no one would notice. No one would ask where I was. That realization didn't hurt the way it used to. It just felt empty. Still, I went. I don't know why. Maybe habit, maybe hope. Maybe something in me still believed that one day something would shift. So I went to the mall, bought a leather wallet, wrapped it carefully, and on Saturday evening I found myself standing in that driveway, looking at the garage, remembering. Then I walked inside. The house was crowded, 30, maybe 35 people. Neighbors, family, friends, people I half recognized from years of standing on the sidelines. Music filled the room. Laughter bounced off the walls, but no one turned when I walked in, not one person. I set my gift on the table and moved quietly into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, leaned against the counter like I belonged there, like I had always belonged there. My mother was at the center of everything, laughing, glowing, moving effortlessly between guests. She introduced Brenda with pride, showed off the grandchildren, told stories about family vacations. She never looked at me, not once. Frank saw me from across the room. "Hey kiddo," he said, lifting his chin slightly. That was it. That was our entire relationship, summarized in 2 words. I nodded back, and that was the end of it. I stood there, sipping water, staring at the mantel. New photos had been added. Frank with the grandkids at a pumpkin patch, my mother and Brenda at some brunch, a framed picture from a family trip to Hawaii, 4 plane tickets, 4 smiling faces, 0 Wanda. It didn't surprise me anymore, but it still stayed. At 6:30 my mother called for attention. She tapped her glass and the room slowly quieted. She stood beside Frank, smiling that polished, practiced smile. "I want to thank the man who gave me a beautiful family." She talked about their 22 years together, about the house, the holidays, the memories. She praised Brenda, our rock. She praised Cassie, our free spirit. She talked about the grandchildren. She talked about everything, except me. Not once did my name leave her lips, not even accidentally. I wasn't edited out. I had never been written in. The applause came quickly after. People smiled, clapped, wiped away tears. And I stood in the kitchen, holding a plastic cup, feeling something shift inside me. Not anger, not sadness, something deeper, something final. 20 minutes later, my mother finally spoke to me. "Wanda, go to the garage and grab the silver trays. Top shelf, you know where everything is." Of course I did. I always knew where everything was in the garage. I opened the door slowly. The smell hit me instantly: oil, dust, cold concrete. The same smell, unchanged after all these years. The space looked different, but not different enough. Workbench, storage bins, a bicycle. And in the corner where my mattress used to be, Frank's golf clubs. I stood there for a moment longer than I needed to. Then I found the trays, but behind them, something caught my eye. A box, old, faded. Labeled in handwriting I recognized instantly. W stuff, my stuff. I pulled it down. Inside were pieces of a life I barely remembered, drawings, report cards, small forgotten things. And at the bottom, a red baseball cap. My father's. My breath caught. I hadn't seen it in over 2 decades. I picked it up slowly. And underneath it, envelopes, dozens of them, bound together with an old rubber band that snapped the moment I touched it. My hands started shaking as I picked one up. The return address read, Ray Tillman, my father, postmarked 2005. I opened it. Inside was a birthday card. Happy 10th birthday, Pumpkin. I miss you every day. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed another card, then another. Every single year, every October, he had written to me. He had sent money, photos, messages. I'm still here, Pumpkin, over and over again. Every envelope had been opened, every single one. Someone had read them, then hidden them, in a box in the garage, above the place where I slept, for 13 years. I sat down on the cold concrete floor, and I broke, not quietly. Not controlled. I cried in a way I hadn't cried since I was a child, because everything I believed, everything I had accepted as truth, was collapsing all at once. He didn't leave me. He didn't forget me. He never stopped trying. Someone made sure I never knew, and I didn't need to guess who. I gathered the letters with trembling hands, all of them. I put them in my bag, and then I stood up. Upstairs the party was still going. Music, laughter, plates clinking. Like nothing had changed, but everything had. I walked back inside slowly, set the trays down on the counter. My mother didn't even look at me, didn't notice my face, didn't notice the storm sitting right behind my eyes. I stood there holding 22 years of truth in my bag, ready to speak, ready to finally be heard. But before I could say a single word, the doorbell rang, and everything changed again. The doorbell echoed through the house, cutting clean through the noise of laughter and music like something sharp and deliberate. For a brief second, nobody moved. Then my mother looked up. "Who is that?" she said, almost annoyed. "Everyone is already here." She wiped her hands on a towel and walked toward the front door. I stayed where I was, but my body had gone completely still. Something in the air had shifted. I couldn't explain it, but I felt it. Like the moment right before a storm breaks. From where I stood in the kitchen, I could see the entryway through the dining room. My mother opened the door, and everything stopped. At first, I couldn't see who it was. Her body blocked most of the doorway, but I saw her posture change instantly. Her shoulders locked, her back stiffened. Her hand gripped the doorframe so tightly her knuckles turned white. Then she spoke. "What are you doing here?" Her voice wasn't angry, it was something worse. It was afraid, and then I heard his voice. Low, calm, steady. "I'm here to see my daughter." My heart didn't just skip, it dropped. My mother tried to shut the door, but the man placed his hand against it. Not forcefully, just enough to stop it. 21 years, Diane, he said quietly. Not one more day. She stepped back, and he walked in. I saw him clearly now. Older, grey at the temples, lines in his face that hadn't been there before, but something about him was instantly, undeniably familiar. The way he stood, the way he held himself. And then it hit me, not in my head, in my chest, like something waking up after being buried for years. My father, Ray Tillman. The room hadn't fully reacted yet. Only a few people near the door had gone quiet. Others were still talking, unaware of what had just entered the house, but I couldn't hear anything else. He wasn't looking at my mother. He was looking past her, looking for me. And when his eyes found mine, everything else disappeared. 21 years, gone in a single moment. He didn't smile. His chin trembled slightly. His lips pressed together like he was holding something back. Then he nodded, just once, slow. I nodded back. That was all it took. We found each other. My mother grabbed his arm, her voice sharp and panicked now. "You need to leave, right now, before I call the police." He looked down at her hand, then back at her face. "The restraining order expired in 2014, he said calmly. "And it was based on a lie. You know that, my lawyer knows that, and now the court knows it too." The words hit the room like a shockwave. People started turning. Talking stopped. Frank came in from the backyard, confusion written all over his face. "What's going on? Who is this?" My mother answered too quickly. "Nobody, just an old mistake." That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped into place. I stepped forward. "His name is Ray Tillman," I said clearly. "He's my father." Silence, not loud silence, heavy silence. The kind that fills every corner of a room. The kind that says nothing will ever be the same after this. My father opened the folder he was holding. Inside were documents, copies, records, proof. and then he began to speak, not loudly, not angrily, but with a calm certainty that made every word land harder. He explained the restraining order, how my mother had claimed he was dangerous, that he had threatened me, that he had a weapon in the house. He showed attendance records proving I wasn't even home the day she claimed it happened. He showed statements, evidence, truth, then came the checks, rows of them, every month for 13 years, child support, money meant for me, $70,000, he said quietly, all sent, all received. The room shifted again. Eyes turned to my mother, then I spoke. You told me he never paid anything. My voice didn't shake, it didn't need to. You told me he left nothing. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Frank stepped forward slowly. 70,000, he said, his voice cracking. Diane, where did it go? No answer. I reached into my bag, pulled out the bundle of letters, and placed them on the table. They're birthday cards, I said, one every year from him, all opened. All hidden in the garage. A collective breath filled the room. My father looked at them and something in him broke. I sent one every year, he said softly. I thought they were being returned. They weren't, I said, they were buried. Right above where I slept. That was the moment everything fully unraveled. Cassie started crying. Frank sat down like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. Brenda stood frozen, trying to process. And my mother, she slid down the wall. Not dramatically, just slowly, like gravity finally caught up with her. I was protecting you, she whispered. I looked at her. For what? I asked. She had no answer, because there wasn't one, not a real one, just fear, control, and choices. Years of them, one after another, and now they were all here, in the open, where they couldn't be hidden anymore. I'm not going to report you, I said finally. Her head snapped up, hope flickering for just a second. I'm not going to sue you, I'm not going to fight you. That hope grew and then I took it away, but I'm done. Silence, no calls, no visits, no holidays. Her face fell apart. You built a family without me, I continued. I'm just making it official. She tried to speak, tried to stop me, but there was nothing left to say. Nothing that could fix this, nothing that could undo 22 years. I turned, walked toward the door. My father stepped beside me. We didn't speak, we didn't need to. We stepped outside together. The night air hit my face, cool, clean, real. Behind us, the house was still full of noise, but it wasn't my noise anymore. It wasn't my life anymore. I walked past the garage, stopped for just a second, looked at it, that door, that space, that part of my life. And for the first time, it meant nothing. Just wood, just concrete, just something I survived, not something that defined me. I kept walking. Good night, pumpkin, my father said softly. I paused, then answered, good night, Dad. The word felt unfamiliar, but right. I drove home alone, but I wasn't alone anymore. Not really, because the truth had found me. And once you have the truth, you can finally begin again. Epilogue. The next morning, I called him. We talked for 2 hours, about everything, about nothing, about all the years we lost and all the time we still had. He told me about his life, I told him about mine. And for the first time, I felt like I belonged in my own story. Not hidden, not erased, not forgotten, but seen, and that changed everything. Some people will rewrite your past to protect themselves, but the truth doesn't disappear. It waits, and when it finally comes out, it doesn't just reveal what was hidden. It gives you back what was taken. Your voice, your story, yourself, and that is where real life begins.